Like to call the Duval Committee of the Whole workshop for February 17th, 2026, to order at 5:32 p.m. First item on the agenda is the review of the regular meeting agenda. Are there any requests for updates or changes for the regular? None. We'll move on to our discussion items for this evening. The first item on the agenda is the annexation proposal. I believe Jeremy Barnett from Black and White Development is joining us today. Yeah, you're welcome to come up to the podium and then I don't know if you have slides as well or if it's all.
No, just I'm just gonna speak briefly about the summary, and then I've given each one of you a packet so you can do a little bit of deeper dive on your own. So my name is Jeremy Barnett. I'm with Black and White Development. We're a relatively small developer. I'm based in Oregon. There's 3 principals. We're all spread out between Washington and Oregon, and we focus on the entire state of Oregon and Washington. One thing we do differently as a developer is we've worked really hard to incorporate affordability into each one of our developments. And so a couple of years ago, I started working with some landowners in the North Urban Growth area. And so 2 years later, kind of have developed a concept for that area. And we feel like bringing some affordability there not only serves the people, but also aligns with, I think, Duval's initiatives and really the state of Washington and Oregon's initiatives for affordable housing. So in a nutshell, what we're proposing is to annex in the entire North Urban Growth area. So roughly 80 acres of land. We currently, like I said, over the last 2 years, my main focus has been working with landowners. So we have approximately 35-ish acres under contract across 4 different landowners, 5 parcels. And so we would also be proposing a project that goes, hand in hand with the annexation. So that project, as it stands now, is roughly, we project somewhere around 150 homes. We would take, in alignment with Duval's housing action plan, we would be looking to do some clustered housing. I have examples of sort of the conceptual idea behind the cluster housing in the back of the proposal. But with the 150 homes, we would be committed to at least 20% of those homes being affordable, meaning they would be targeted at folks that earn less than 80% of the area median income. And we do that, we think, in sort of a unique way. We're not requiring any subsidies. We're not looking for any additional credits from the city in the way of density. We would work within the guidelines of your comp plan. But we do that by involving a nonprofit, a community land trust. Also, there's a bit of Q&A on the land trust. Some people are familiar with them, some aren't. We are working in particular with one land trust that is one of the largest in King County, Homestead Community Land Trust. And so the land trust piece of the whole puzzle here is that they're a nonprofit. The actual land that exists under the homes that we would build that are affordable is held in perpetuity by the nonprofit. It is those homes are sold just as a normal home would be sold, so people can own them for a lifetime. They can pass them down generation to generation. What they do when they sign up for one of these homes and they get the discount is basically they're signing a 99-year lease that's renewable with the land trust. The land trust then manages that. They sign an agreement and they are locked into sort of a fixed appreciation. So that's where the long-term affordability comes in, right? You're buying low and you're sort of, gaining some appreciation, but it's a normal appreciation. It's not the wild appreciation that we often see in the market. And so that's our commitment is we bring in the community land trust. We build this affordability into our developments, and when the developments are then built out, that is a component of them, right? We're not trying to deal with that after the fact. And so I think that's what's different about this project is we're not looking to just build more homes. We're looking to, you know, bring something to the table that actually makes sense. The second piece to making that all work is our commitment as a developer. We've just decided that, you know, developers typically make a lot of money. We can work on smaller margins. And so part of the land that goes into the land trust comes from these awesome landowners that we've been working with. They're actually contributing through a donation part of the land. And so that's where part of the land for the land trust comes from. The other part will just come from us basically sacrificing margin and contributing the land that the land trust will then need. So in this case, let's call it roughly 5 acres is completely free to the land trust. The land trust then vets buyers, manages the land, you know, handles everything. So there's, again, no commitment on the city side. This is all just handled through what we've developed as our model for most of our developments going forward. So and then I think that's really it. Like I said, there's a lot more information on us, the actual project, you know, some conceptual drawings, but we're you know, over the last 2 years we've really teed this up. We're ready to move forward, and we would like to you know, just introduce the project, but then it is our intention to then move forward with the full application, working with the city hopefully to figure out the best way to handle that. You know, there are areas that we would still target within the North Urban Growth Area to expand our development, but there are also areas that we feel like probably don't have a lot of development potential. And so, you know, just kind of working with the city to figure out how do we keep the space. I mean, I've been up there quite a few times, and it's a very nice natural space. We want to retain that. You'll see some of the diagrams of our cluster housing, like think sort of cottage cluster, very, very green, you know. And so we would hopefully with the development, not only, you know, build homes, but also sort of connect this outlying area of the city, finally get that incorporated into the actual city. And then through this development, connect some of the open space. We have, you know, plans for a trail that sort of connects in through the lake and some of the other trail systems. So, but yeah, just really looking to collaborate with the city to make sure that we're aligned with their initiatives, your guys' initiatives. That's it.
From Councilmember Pasqualeski, sorry.
That's right.
Oh, sorry.
I may have missed it. Is the entire proposal for that area to be in the land trust or just portions of it?
Just portions of it, yeah. And so the thing that we see with and we got away from using the term affordability because it has such a stigma to it. You know, depending on where you're building, if you're building in Duval, affordability means something different than it means, you know, in some other cities. And so really our focus is really what we call frontline occupation housing, and you'll see a Q&A on that in there. And so it's basically the folks that are, you know, servicing the community now can, you know, obtain homes. And so that's our focus. You know, I do think the urban growth area up here lends itself to potentially getting some more dense, you know, housing, like condo stuff that could appeal to, you know, some other affordability targets. But for us, our primary focus has been that 80% AMI or less.
Kind of more.
Sure.
Do you, in envision when you do these types of things, having the land trust roll into the existing HOA of the community, or do you separate those into separate HOAs?
I think, that's a great question. I don't know that we've fully figured that out exactly how that will work, but basically the idea is when you roll into the neighborhood, you wouldn't know affordability from, you know, a market rate house because they're essentially just built all the same. So, you know, likely it's going to be in by the same HOA and you know, if the HOA is taking care of landscaping, that sort of thing, the land itself will just be governed by a community interest.
That's the one thing we've seen now is, the unit may be affordable, but then the HOA dues get rather expensive. And then it actually, we've seen it in another part of the city, is it starts to push those residents out because they can't afford it, so it's just.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and, you know, I think that those are the types of things that we're willing to, you know, with Homestead, they're a community land trust with, you know, more than 300 units under management. You know, the collaboration between the land trust, us, the city, I think, you know, those are the types of issues we would definitely get in front of, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Schaefer, and then Councilmember Owens.
I like the idea of the land trust. What your proposal is ambiguous about is, how many homes would that actually be included, as, low income, or affordable homes?
Yeah,
It says 20% of total attached units. But right, paragraph right before that says 148 to 160 total units, some of which will be attached, some detached, etc. So I think it would be important for this council to understand really what your proposal entails. You know, on one end, if there's 5 attached single family homes, only one of those is going to be affordable.
Yeah.
If there's, you know, 100, you know, that's, you know, something else. So you need to be more specific about what your proposal really is as far as that's concerned.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, and like I said, this is sort of an introduction of the project. Our commitment really is 20% of the total homes. So roughly, I mean, I can tell you approximately 30 homes is what we're committed to with no influx from public funding. So that's a whole nother piece of this project. You know, they're depending on when we develop, the community land trust may have access to public funding, which helps drive even further the goal to, you know, increase the number of affordable units. So the other thing is with the collaboration with the city, you know, we can do more when we're not burdened with some things outside of the project, right? Like offsite costs. You know, if we're sacrificing margin, then, you know, working with the city to figure out, you know, how are SDC fees treated for the affordable stuff, how are SDC fees if we're, you know, putting in ADUs, that sort of thing, I think is where we collaborate to say, let's all put a piece together. You know, we're sacrificing margin. We have landowners that are willing to donate land, and, you know, and then we bring the third piece, the city in, and how do we work together to, you know, potentially increase that number. So
Sure.
Yeah.
I suggest you make that more specific instead of attached homes, maybe total homes.
yeah, and I think, you know, this summary, I wrote this summary before coming to this meeting, but I think when you dive into the actual proposal of the project, which takes you through how we're aligning with the comprehensive plan, the housing action plan, the watershed plan, there's an actual, you know, specific number in there that's 20% of the total unit. So that is our intention.
Good, thanks.
I was curious that maybe you've already reviewed it or maybe not, but I was curious because I thought in the past the city had done a certain degree of environmental study of that area and found it to be somewhat undevelopable just because of slope and wetlands and sensitive areas and significant trees, etc.
Yeah.
How aware of that are you and have you already accommodated that in this plan?
Yeah, so we're pretty well aware of that. So there was a previous attempt at annexation by a national builder Quadrant Homes, now Tri-Point Homes. And so they had spent a lot of time and energy, surveying the area. We have access to all that information. And so, it is an area that has a lot of resource. Looking through all those reports, I think, again, this is how, working with the city and certainly there would be agreements in place, pre-annexation, potentially some development agreements to capture all of this stuff, right? Like we're no longer just handshake stuff here, but I think, there's enough information there to know that's what's driving that 150 to 160 number for total homes, is that we know we have wildlife corridor stuff that we need to set aside. There are some limited wetlands, sloping. That's why I say some of the areas as you get further north don't really lend themselves well to development. You get topography, you get, sort of sloping away from all of the city utilities. And so we definitely have taken all of that stuff into consideration. I think what we would be looking to do is use professionals, use scientists, figure out, where the best resources are. If you look in the deeper dive, that it's actually, that area is categorized moderately. It's not heavily like burdened as a significant resource area, but there are significant resources within it. And so I think that's what we would be looking to, how do we move our pathways through there so people can enjoy that stuff and not develop? How do we cluster develop so that we can cluster homes in areas where there are no resources to allow, preservation of areas where there are resources.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a complicated area for sure.
And then it is follow the other, aside from the defensive area, the other part I thought of is in the emergency management plan the city has, if I'm not mistaken, that area was pretty prone to landslide. And so I imagine that with development, you would have to be pretty particular about security.
Yeah. And there have been some pretty significant geotech studies. So there's basically water resources that are creating topography. We generally wouldn't develop in those areas anyway. And so the heavy concentration of the cluster housing would be along 275th, so we're sort of bordering 275th and then spreading some single family detached homes out in the areas around the resource stuff.
Any questions? Yeah, I'm, the last house I bought was 30 years ago, so I'm not familiar with community land trust. So can you kind of go over again what the difference might be between black and white development and say another developer coming in and buying a whole property and developing on its own and selling to individual homeowners?
I think the major difference is we just have a commitment to affordability, right? So we've just decided as a developer that we think a lot of the industry is ugly and it's money driven and that's not how we want to be. And so, the legacy we want to leave behind is that, we sort of made a difference in the space. And so that's really what, drives us going out and seeking these different models to development, right? So could we come in, just build housing, market rate projects? We've done them, we do them. Do they make a difference in the world? Not really. And so that's the difference, is we've just decided that our business model is different. And so, the community land trust is just sort of one way to achieve that. They're completely independent from us. There's dozens and dozens of community land trusts, mostly grassroots stuff. So Homestead being one of the largest and having just hundreds of homes under management, it kind of speaks to, they've been around a long, long time. And so what we see is, to really affect change, we need to do this on a development scale. So a mass development scale, but with the grassroots mindset. And then we build it into our projects, right? So if we sell, and just to be, completely transparent, we don't build homes. We'll go as far as horizontal construction. We do not do vertical construction. It just, was something we did in the past. We don't, because we want to focus on teeing up projects where these big corporations, if they want to buy our project, it comes with the affordability built into it, and they don't have an option, so.
So with regard to property tax, is it the individual homeowner that pays property tax, or is it? how-
Typically, that since the land is held in trust by a nonprofit, then they escape that property tax situation in whole or in part, so.
So there would be no property tax income coming in to Duval from this?
On the affordable units, it would be significantly decreased, but remember, we still have 130, roughly 130 market rate homes, give or take, that you would definitely, see that income from.
Good question. I'm actually really happy that you're pushing the affordability on this. It's something that really appeals to me. I've been down that road and it's incredibly natured.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you're doing the trails as well, but have we actually done any studies on whether there's anything historical back there? I'm looking at the map now and I see at least one home already there.
Yeah.
Would that home be incorporated into the project, or is that, we know that landowner's going to leave it, or is it going to be demolished? Do we know what's going on?
Yeah, so across the land that we have under contract, there is one home that will remain that the landowner is retaining. So we're purchasing a portion of that property.
Oh.
The other parcels are either vacant or they have, less significant homes that, we're basically going to demolish, because then we can incorporate new affordable housing in that area.
I sort of have one question. I don't know if this is for you or Cynthia or Steve, but I think you mentioned 5 acres sort of under contract and working with a group of homeowners. I think the ask was for the whole North UGA.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, I know there's thresholds that get triggered in terms of survey rates. I want to say the first one's 10% and then it kind of goes up. I didn't know you referenced the quadrant previously. I know we'd gone through a round and they'd actually exceeded that, sort of had gone through the process. I was just a little unclear, like for a new development, if we start over, if there's a new set of requests, in terms of how, if you could just sort of touch on, I think you indicated the contract piece, but I am interested in hearing from staff a little bit in terms of what that triggers are for the next.
So the next process point for this project would be to apply for a 10% annexation petition through, it's kind of like the same process as applying for a permit. That will then trigger certain workflow, making sure that environmental assessments are done, although I'm not sure if that's done at the 10 or the 50. But there's kind of 2 points. You apply for the 10%, council deliberates. There's a second kind of permit or petition at 50%, which then triggers kind of activating development agreements and more studies, because it then is a little more real.
I asked that because I knew there's the parties of interest and then the impact on the other parties within the NGA. So again, having gone through this process, previously we kind of went through the round. But I didn't know if it sort of restarted. So it's a per project basis. Thank you.
Yeah.
Director Leszewski, anything to add to that?
Sounds great.
And there is I think Cynthia, you and I had touched on, there is a process for island annexation specifically. And so, I guess that would be the city's, if you guys determined that path was the right path, that actually, I think is the most simplified process. And so, I think that's where that collaboration, like we're ready to, submit the full application. We can meet the 50% threshold. And so we're 100% on board going that direction. But I just want to point out there is something that was set up specifically for those islands to make it a more efficient process. So that might be an option.
Yeah, and that's at King County. So there are compensation processes through King County. Whether you're a city organization annexing contiguous land like Big Rock or island annexations. So there is, I wouldn't necessarily call it expedited, but a more pro forma process for getting through the county when you have, for this purpose, it's this carve out of kind of the natural.
It would restore the city boundary or,
Yeah.
or finalize it, I guess.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Councilmember Sheep?
Okay, so I saved the hard questions for last.
Okay, good.
So, let me give you just a tiny bit of background before I finally get to my question. But it's this council's responsibility to make decisions that are best for the residents of Duval. That plus the fact that our GMA plan, we are forecasting that we are going to actually meet the GMA housing requirements primarily through upzoning within the existing city limits. So we don't have that we know of yet a deficit related to GMA, and our comp plan will reflect that. With those things in mind, I did read your proposal and I did read your bullet points about the benefits to Duval. Frankly, I found them less than convincing. What are the real benefits to Duval, the current residents of Duval, for this? I fail to see any, primarily because with the growth we're already going to experience under this GMA plan with the upzoning, our current transportation situation is going to be even more stressed. Our services will be even more stressed. Frankly, I see a lot of downside to that. And if you're proposing we add yet more houses that will yet stress our transportation needs even more, that will stress our services the city provides even more. I see downside to this. I got to be very frank. I don't see any upside.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I mean, the information I have access to shows a pretty significant deficit. And so I guess that's where you guys get to make the decision, right? Like as an outsider, I don't know all of the workings of Duval. I mean, I feel in my heart like this gives access to, a diversified housing types. You have the affordable. I mean, I don't know of any way for you guys, even through upzoning, the affordable stuff that's happening doesn't seem like it's significant enough to make a real impact. And so that's what I see as this development and future developments really setting a model for how to do that on a larger scale. Yeah.
I would just add to that, not necessarily, it's not even a counterpoint per se, but I know this is, you've gone out of your way to say this is very preliminary and obviously there's no specific land plan here. I think the one thing to me that did stand out is obviously that's as beautiful as this was called out sort of a natural undeveloped, whether it's even I think there's an old runway up there or something, but there's a lot of area. And given that a lot of it is not developable, it's an opportunity to lock some of that into open space. So there would be some potential in perpetuity benefits sort of around the broader. I think the other part of the obviously housing stock conversation, which we're still working through, I think as far as the council, is the what's projected on paper versus what's available. I think that's where you're talking to. These would be tangible units that would be available for sale versus something that's zoned out on paper that may never get built. So in terms of the diversity, and I'm looking forward to sort of seeing as plans move forward and sort of assessing on that basis. But I did want to just throw that just to put some context around. I think this proposal that you laid out that's to me is the two of the potential benefits, but I don't, again, where the rubber meets the road is the actual tangible plan and sort of what we see as a result of the results of the initial petition that goes out in terms of homeowner interest.
Yeah.
Because there is obviously investment and cost to the city as well in terms of bringing infrastructure services and other costs associated with that. So
absolutely.
Councilmember Sup.
So I kind of see that either the city of Duval participates in the development or we let King County, the residents in that area, participate with King County and develop the area. So it's kind of the two options I see as far as development goes.
Well, I just wondered if for whatever reason this area wasn't an area to move forward with, would you be able to relocate to another spot in Duval and still do with the land trust? And I mean, are there other areas in town that would be interesting for you?
Not with this type of opportunity, though,
Okay.
not that I see, and I think, you know, ultimately. We're not in the business of going in and trying to build what this doesn't service the city. So if you guys made that decision that this project doesn't service the city, you know, we would respect that. I think what's hard with land that's already annexed into the city is I don't see a way, and I don't see these large builders incentivized to do anything about affordability. If you increase density, like you said, then you can, you know, get this sort of tit for tat situation where you know, it's quid pro quo on affordability. And so I think what is different is we're willing to make that commitment up front before you give us the land that we could develop on. So
I just had one, so there was significant engagement with the HOA to the east with the prior developer, with the prior attempt of annexation. Is that something that's on your radar or something? It was mainly over the potential for Mannion Way to continue through and become a thoroughfare instead of being a dead end right now. So just you don't necessarily have to comment on that, but I just wanted to bring that up and make sure you were aware of that to probably begin some kind of engagement with that community as well.
yeah, I think that would be a necessary part of this development is to connect that road in. You know, I think what we would like to avoid, I think with the quadrant, there was a pre-annexation agreement that was addressing, you know, traffic circles and that sort of stuff off-site. And so that's where we would, you know, I mean, we need to assess what that actually looks like, but that connection piece, with that road, that's one of the reasons we want to bring the entire North Urban Growth area in, is because our development area is, you know, sort of positioned in a way that it, you know, it doesn't really achieve bringing in everything and you know, achieving that connectivity. And so, yes, that in short, yes, we would be planning that would be our expense, would be to run that street through. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have one more copy if anybody didn't get one. Okay.
Thank you.
The second item on discussion item for this evening is the I guess second round around the policy on artificial intelligence tools, and then do it by city administrator.
Good evening, council, staff, members of the public. So I have not received comments or suggested edits to the proposed policy. So with that, the next step would be to have city attorney review of the current policy and offer any insights or feedback. There aren't a ton of cities that already have one in place, so we're by no means trend setting here, but in terms of the other clients that are served by Ogden Murphy Walls, I don't know that many of them have a robust policy to compare off of, but the natural next step would be to do attorney review and then submit a final for your consideration at the next council meeting. But in the meantime, happy to answer any questions or take any notes that you all may have tonight.
Actually, I had some notes that I meant to give you, but I had a medical emergency last week that my doctor said, don't use your computer anymore. So I wasn't actually able to send them to you. Is it too late to send that yet?
It is not.
Okay, I will do that too.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Schaefer.
I liked the proposal. It may not be perfect, but we have to keep in mind, we can change it if we need to. It's not written in stone. I think it's a very good starting place. So once you get suggestions, any additional suggestions, I suggest that we do turn it into the attorney and we'll take on.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess my only comment, and as I think I mentioned this in the last meeting. You know, we have a similar framework, I mean, probably seeing similar things. I didn't know if there'd be any benefit, I think you touch all the boxes, you know, they're labeled a little differently in terms of impact and respect, fairness. Fairness obviously touches on bias. There is sort of an inclusiveness principle, which is sort of woven through, but not explicitly called out. I didn't know if there'd be any benefit to do that in terms of, you know, your 3 buckets or in terms of paragraph, because I think that's a broader city objective as well. But, you know, in terms of the others, the transparency, the reliability, the safety, I think you baked all the pieces into that. So, and I think as was called out, it's a living document, so it can obviously be revised in the future.
Yeah, so Mayor Pro Tem Mercer, looking at C, adding inclusivity to that section.
Yes, yeah, because I think fairness is the bias, but the inclusive is a little different in terms of
Okay.
how we target it.
Yeah, happy to.
Even though you do call out, you know, the biases within those, but I think there's a broader conversation, just making sure that whether it's around age, whether it's around just its representative.
Okay, thank you.
Quick then.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. And the third item, discussion this evening is also with City Administrator McNabb, and that is the temporary expanded alcohol service, which I think you indicated was a little more complicated or complex than that.
It is.
Than presented.
So this is just an opportunity to walk through the program requirements. So we had the presentation from Washington State Liquor Board, who, you know, I think gave a nice overview of what's involved in this process for this summer. I did take notes that I would come back and explain the process a little more from the city's perspective of what would need to happen to have this expanded access for liquor in the summer, which again would allow us to have, for want of a better word, open carry on our sidewalks and in some of our parks and different areas when it comes to alcohol. So just as the process works here, so local governments can request authorization from the Liquor Control Board for expanded outdoor service. We can ask for a one-time event or an ongoing authorization through December 31, 2027, which would allow, you know, for whether it's a World Cup watch event, a music crawl, so any activity in this year period, or actually 2-year period, for either a specific event or for an ongoing event. The program lasts till the end of 2027 with some fairly serious limitations. So hold that date, because there's another date that's not necessarily in conflict, but it's not as compelling of a date as it initially seems. The fee to request authorization is $1,700. Hang on one second. I can't read that, so I'm reading it on my computer. I'm going to put it in slideshow mode so I can see it a little better. Okay. So when we apply, we have to do a site map of the specific area or areas that we are requesting expanded alcohol services in. So as I said, it could be all of Main Street, it could be a particular corridor, but you do have to submit a site map at the time of application. You also have to submit an operating plan that has the details describing all of your adequate local resources. So you can't just designate Main Street for 2 years and say, all of this is expanded alcohol service. You have to have a site plan and you have to have an operation plan for every event that will be included in this expanded alcohol service area. That includes how you're going to do law enforcement patrol in the area, how you're going to ensure safe operations. You have to detail if you have the barriers that you need, if you have litter removal. So it isn't just a designation of a space. You have to have an operating plan for every event that is going to be included in this basically expanded license. Next slide. So here are the licensees that are eligible to participate. So it'll cover almost everything here in Duval. Caterers cannot hold a special event in the corridor. It does not include caterers. It really, to sum it up, it includes places that already have a liquor license, because when you apply, you have to put the licensee liquor license on the application. So most caterers do not have an independent liquor license, so that's why they're excluded. Likewise, special occasions, you can't use the expanded area to have Main Street weddings with liquor. So it also excludes special occasions. Civic campus events, fan zones, all of that would be included. That's not really what we have here in Duval, because we don't, we're not hosting at a civic campus. When we think about that, for instance, we can't host an event at Big Rock Ball Field, have a watch party and have alcohol, an alcohol event at Big Rock, because we have no contiguous wine distilleries, vendors with liquor licenses and all that. Next slide. So responsibilities for local governments, we have to receive approval for the expanded area by submitting a request. That I've gone through and pretended to complete an application. The portal is not terribly complicated. It's all the supporting documents that have to go in it that are a little more complicated. This is the date that I suggested hold. So you have to have a public engagement review by September 1st, 2026. So then if you think about what that entails, we have to be able to hold some open town hall or public engagement event to ask the public how they felt about the open expanded area, which means I'll need at least a month to advertise it, and then some period of time to collate the notes and then submit the notes and the report back to the liquor board. So when you think about it, we're really only talking then about expanded events with liquor access, June, July, maybe into the first week of August, because you won't have time to hold this public engagement review with enough time to submit the report to the liquor board. We have to ensure all outdoor alcohol service areas have barriers, demarcations to indicate the space authorized for alcohol consumption. I think you should also anticipate that there's some kind of person checking those demarcations. So you can't just have, an entrance into this barricaded area. Somebody presumably would need to staff it. We'll need to provide resources to ensure safety, which means additional police patrols in these areas. So we need to make sure that we plan for that. And then with public works, we have to plan for keeping the public safe, public space clean and free of litter. Next slide.
Oh, yeah, good. And I know it doesn't get into this level of granularity, but from an operation plan, I mean, if you think of it as a beer garden model or an extended into the sidewalk, I mean, that could include checking IDs and issuing wristbands or whatever. That would be part of the operation plan. I'm just trying to add a little scoop to it. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't that we don't have a model for it. We have a Rotary beer garden every summer stage. We have a beer garden at Sandblast. March of the Vegetables, I believe, too, has a beer garden. So we have a model for it. It's a little different though when you're designating all of Main Street. Potentially, you have to, for each licensee, make sure that they have an operation plan. And not all of our businesses, I think, operate like the Rotary in terms of knowing how to operate a beer garden outside. So we'll require a little bit of coordination.
So there's one site plan for this whole, we discussed this last time, there's one site plan for the whole city of Duval within the city limits, right? And then,
Maybe potentially.
because that's the way the city of Seattle did it last
Yeah.
time. So I don't know why we would do it differently. And then you'd have, not sure why you wouldn't have just one operation plan for the whole city instead of for each particular event.
Because when we move to the next slide, In your operating plan, you have to list every parcel number that will have the expanded services. So we can't have a single site plan and a single operation plan. But you have to list every parcel that will have it. And you have to list for their events what they will be doing. So like the dates. So we could list the entire area, but we have to denote how we're going to support the expanded service for that
You
licensee.
try to have an overlay.
Yeah.
You have the city and then you'd have all the individual events and individual licensees.
When would you submit the operating plans?
I mean, we could, if we had everything put together, I could submit them today. So let's get to the next slide. So kind of walk through what we'll need to do. So we need to decide what we're going to denote as in our site plan. So the space, is it from Safeway down past the distillery to Valley House? That's what we talked about. Then we have to say who. So at the time of application, we need to list all the businesses with specificity. We need to list their liquor license numbers, the number of barricades they will use, and their height. So for every business, we need to figure out what barricades they'll need, what the height is, and what their individual operating plans will be for that site. So, Amarillo is easy, the deck, that's going to be their site. But for every business and licensee that we put into our site plan, we have to list what their barricade structure is going to be. And then we need to list, when you work through their application, you also have to list the times and dates certain of when these will be. So because we need to do safety and cleanliness plans at the time of application, along with your police patrol plans, we have to figure out what the dates are for these areas. And I put in here as an aspirational date of April 15th. We should have an idea of what events we're going to cover in this overall site plan in order to get everything set up. So that means like every restaurant, every expanded area will need to make sure that we have their barricade plan, their entry points, their litter control, and their safety plan in place. Which means from the city's perspective, once we figure out what businesses want to do it and when, I'll need to plan for public works overtime and police overtime in order to be able to do it. And then we have to give an opportunity for the community to review the framework is if the provisions that we put in place on our site plan were adequate for safety, litter control, and do a cost benefit analysis. And then it needs to be completed by 9/1/2026. So art and wine walk, any music event, all those things have to be completed in time for me to hold this event, get all the public feedback, submit it to the liquor board. We have talked to the chamber. We're looking at 1 of 2 Thursdays in July for the art and wine walk, because that would give us enough time. But if we have any music events that want to be covered by this, so a potential music crawl, we need to know fairly soon and which businesses are going to participate so we can put it on an overall site plan. So that's kind of the logistics of this process. Does that answer your question, Councilmember Supple?
Yeah, it just seems like a lot of work for something that may not ever happen.
Well, I mean, it's doable if everybody is deeply engaged in the process soon.
Alternately, and just sort of counterpoint, if you indicated like most of the existing licensees were not interested, they would operate their businesses as they operate, and we only focused on the art and wine walk, that's also an option, I guess. It would just be a narrower scoped. Because it sounds like we would need to do some type of roving liquor permit anyway to enable the art and wine walk to happen, unless people didn't take their containers with them. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the art and wine walk, if you didn't have this, would operate that people walk into an establishment or a business. So like if you've done the North Bend one, they do an art and wine walk. They call it something different. It's also business activation. But you walk into the store, you shop, you have a glass of wine in the store, but you can't take it out with you. This would operate a little different, that you could have your container walking, throughout your corridor. So a little, I don't know, from an impact perspective, if it makes the event better in any way, maybe a little more flexible. But it is not as though you can set up a liquor, like a wine tasting on the sidewalk. That's not how it actually works. I mean, practically, it still needs to be connected to the establishment because you have to barricade an area on the sidewalk in front of your business.
I had a quick clarification, just because I'm not familiar with this. It says here that the jurisdiction can request a one-time event or an ongoing authorization. If we do the ongoing authorization, I'm assuming that means we're doing it for things like Duval Days, Art and Wine Walk, and so on. But does that also mean that any time between now, December 31st, 2027, Amarillo could say, you know what, Friday, there's a game on, we're doing an outdoor beverage thing. Is that something that they can do, or are we just all kind of coordinating it to these events?
I think we would want to know, maybe not with total specificity, but some amount of detail.
Mhm.
If Amarillo wants to activate like that for this 2-year period or 1.5-year period, we would need to know generally when they were thinking about it, and their safety litter plan and barricade plan for each time they do it. I don't know that they would have to give us every date, but we would have to know what it is they're doing. And I suppose you could submit multiple operating plans throughout this period. But if we want to do it once, designate the area, designate the licensees and what they're doing. My sense is we wouldn't want them to pivot every time to a new idea. We would need to know generally what they're going to do for
For that period.
for that period. Yeah.
Thank you.
Member Schiffer.
I like the idea of going ahead and submitting the authorization request as soon as possible. I have two concerns. One is just staff time, ongoing staff time, as far as getting the requests ready, follow-up work during, any additional work during events. And then my biggest staff concern, I guess, is the police department. So Chief, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this.
It's difficult for me to say what type of resources will be needed without having a plan in place, figure out what time and day that would be. Our staffing is at limited numbers now. It would probably require some evaluation of overtime, shift changes that may have to take place, but it's difficult for me to say we need 3 people or we need 1 without knowing the extent of the type of event that's going to go. And that goes to that planning process of being able to evaluate whether or not the significance of the impact. So it's difficult, but
Okay.
Yeah.
Cynthia, what about other staff time? Like, what do you think?
Well, I think that's the concern, right, of having this kind of open through 2027. Anytime a business has an idea they want to activate, because we can't plan the costs of that terribly effectively. So, for instance, if we're going to have a 1-person band on the patio at Amarillo, and maybe it spills out into Depot Park, that's one thing. We're going to have a bar crawl on St. Patrick's Day is a totally different thing. And having a rather lengthy expanded license doesn't really allow us to plan very well for litter. And if you designate the whole area with no time bounds, we can't easily plan for that. Similarly, if it's a large event like a bar crawl, we're going to need porta potties. It can get quite expensive, particularly in kind impact to the city of the services we.
Yeah, any way to share that cost, do you think, with the businesses themselves?
Well, the Art and Wine Walk has $10,000 of Port of Seattle money that is already put aside to support that event, which would and can go to overtime costs to support the Art and Wine Walk. for staffing. So that is designated money. That's an interesting question. We don't have good data on the music crawl from any of our businesses that they actually saw an uptick, a meaningful uptick in sales due to the music crawl. And for the businesses that did not host the music crawl, we have no information that they in any way benefited from the music crawl from having that event open. So I don't have. I guess the answer is I don't know. I don't know what to share with you.
Right. No, I understand that. Can I ask one more?
Sure.
Okay. If we get this general license, this license that allows us to do anytime before December 20.7, we can still, that doesn't give us an open, for any event, anytime, right? The city can still designate when this, for instance, we can designate, hey, this area of Main Street is going to be open for this expanded alcohol service on this date between these hours because of this event. Is that true?
That is true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So we still have control.
We do. The first year, the only time bound limitation is you are required to do this public outreach. And again, I think it really is intended, the program was intended for big watch parties for, I'm not a soccer fan, World Cup. So a little bit time bound by that. But yes, I imagine that once we were done with that, put in our report, we could submit a revised operating plan to allow for some new event that was designated by the city. Yeah, I didn't read any limitation on revising the operating plan through that 2-year period.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Koslowski, you have a question?
I do, so.
No, it was you, Councilmember Olin.
Sorry, so a question, a comment and a question. A couple of years ago, I attended the Sisters Folk Festival down in Sisters, Oregon. I don't know if anybody's familiar. It's an amazing event. And, so this is a very, very small town, Sisters, Oregon, had like 2,000 people or something like that. It's a really, really small town. And their entire economy thrives off of tourism and events like this. There's nothing there but events. And they're always having events. But the Sisters Folk Festival, so you go down and they block off, I don't know, several square blocks, that's it. And you get your silicone cup, that's branded and, Sisters Folk Fest, and it has the sponsors that are on it. And any venue you go to, you buy your little chips and then, you can refill with the beer there and take it and kind of walk around anywhere in this area as long as you have your bracelet and go from spot to spot. And there's artists all day, every day, all weekend playing at all these different venues. And it's an awesome event. It's just so much fun. I don't know how long it took them to build up, but now, as soon as they release, even before they release the lineup, as soon as they release tickets, the local hotels are booked and the parking lots where they're renting out camping is booked. I mean, it's immediate. You can still get tickets, but you gotta kind of figure it out yourself. So anyway, they built up tourism and they generate a lot of revenue from that. And so it's a cool event. It's something that I could see happening here. It's just a lot of fun. So anyway, I see room for that kind of thing here. On the other end of the spectrum, and I guess this is a question or a request. I don't know the implication of carrying open beverages on the community that struggles with alcohol. But I think that I don't know how to connect with them either, but like maybe through churches or something like that. But if we can connect to I know that there's certain concerts that I go to that they'll have like a booth at the concert for alcoholics or addicts or something to check in during set break or something like that if they need that community. And so I don't know what that means, but maybe if we could reach out to that community and say, hey, listen, we're going to be doing this do you want to have a tent somewhere? Do you need a support group? But do you want any presence while we have this out there? Just at least ask them. And maybe they don't care, maybe they don't want it, maybe they want to stay anonymous. That's fine, but we should at least ask.
Yeah, and we have connections to that community. So we know in the clerk's office who to connect with on that. Yes, I attend outdoor music festivals that always have a substance-free area for me.
Questions?
Well, I don't mean to sound like I'm a prohibitionist, but, I fail to see how this is going to change much other than allowing one person to carry an open container from one bar to the next. Because you do have to set up barricades, right?
Mhm.
And so, you're restricted to drinking in there, but and then you're allowed to take that container down the street outside the barrier.
So kind of similar to the sisters event, I mean, I could see as it evolved that you would potentially designate an evening. So I'll just imagine, I'll set an imaginary stage, right? Where you could block off with Washtenaw approval, some of Main Street from, say, Stop It Down, and have a street event where it's all barricaded in and you're walking from business to business with an open container. Then you have music inside the street, you have artists inside the container. Like, I can imagine, probably wouldn't want to do it on 203, but maybe like the street above the library between the school district, that's flat, you could probably put vendors there. I mean, so you can imagine, although the distillery and stuff isn't there. I don't know how you do it, but you could block off a couple blocks and make it kooky, and
It's only in effect until 2027, right? So after 2027, all this work we put into this goes away.
I mean, my sense is that Washington State, the reason they're having these public outreach sessions is to get data to figure out whether or not this should be more expansive with this permission.
All right.
And I think what I'm hearing you say, and I had this sort of, the question I had before was there are certain venues that already have that outdoor space, whether it's the restaurant, the Grange, they've got their back porch or their area. The Mexican restaurant has their porch, Armadillo, I think you mentioned, has their porch. It would be these other businesses like the distillery, which doesn't have, and really they would be limited either to the barricaded area in front of their business, or, and that's where I can definitely see it getting complicated because of the contiguous requirements and how you sort of navigate that. But I think where you were going a little bit, Mike, is like, what is the incremental lift, versus like, what are we getting that we don't already have in terms of the venues that have outdoor spaces? And I just to put in sort of my piece in, because I think ultimately you're looking for some feedback from the council in terms of next steps, is I also don't know. I think my response would really be based on interest from those other, even the Duval Tavern, has an outdoor space today. So it's like, what is the interest amongst the others that don't? And so that really, for me, would be the next thing that I would want to hear a little bit in terms of whether that's the chamber or outreach, to get an idea on interest amongst the licensees that are eligible, and then that will really inform the next steps. Councilmember Kozlowski.
Just a clarifying question on my part. My understanding is this is only for businesses in the city. There's nothing that enables us to be, if someone was interested in doing like a concept in Duval to test if they ever wanted to bring their restaurant out, they could not partake in something like this.
Let me go back to the chart.
My understanding is they're not allowed to, but
I don't think so.
They wouldn't have a liquor.
Well, if they already had a,
Caterer, like,
yeah, but
they were already licensed, so I mean, I
Like a
imagine.
food truck that has a liquor license, kind of. Sort of.
I don't know if food trucks can. But
Yeah, you have to be attached to a winery.
I just think they have
But
beer
like-
too, not just.
And like a food truck won't get a liquor license just for this event, it would cost them too much money, but if there was something where like if we're gonna make an outdoor area, does it make it interesting for other small businesses to explore, you know, testing like what Zeke's doing, and seeing if like Duval's an interesting market for a period of time.
Right.
No.
Because we don't have a civic campus, so, you know, for instance, the city of Seattle has civic campuses that they're holding these big parties at. In that, if you look at the chart, if we designated a civic campus, I think you could have licensees from other areas bring in like those bar carts. I don't know if anybody's seen that, they do a bachelorette parties. Like, I think you probably could create like an incubator environment for something like that. If we did it at a campus that the city owns, so I don't know if we could designate McCormick Park as something like that. I think potentially we could explore that. But for the purposes of like a wine walk or something like that, I don't think you could have a non-Duval licensee do that.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Cynthia, what do you need from us, council? Does you wanna?
Well, I was just-
See, or what do you?
So this presentation was just to explain it's not that easy. And I think, I guess, consent for the purposes of the Art and Wine Walk to at least continue planning that event with the mind that we may apply for this outdoor expanded service for that event only. Unless I hear from council that you want to go for all of through 2027, maybe starting small and not plan for expanded service for other things. But I mean, I guess I'm just kind of taking the temperature of council on what you would like. Oh,
A quick clarifying question, the barricading and cattle guarding, if it's a linear event, let's say from the tavern down the way to Grange, do you have to barricade that pathway?
I think you would barricade the sidewalk. Potentially, like a fun run.
Barricades, we think of barricades like fences, but I think in this case, at least what the city of Seattle has done is actually they look for their businesses at least. Now, this isn't the same as with businesses, they embed a little sign in the sidewalk. And if you want to see one, go to our distillery here. He has them where you can take a drink this far, but no farther. A barricade could be, correct me if you understand it, but a barricade could be something as simple as a what do you call it, traffic cone with a label on it and put it every 10 feet. I mean, that I don't know that for a fact, but I believe that is true.
For a regular event, right? If you host a beer garden, you have it. That's started off with a 36 or 42-inch system. It's not like it's all protection or structural, but there is something.
So this is in the council packet, so it's what is the maximum distance apart for openings into and out of the expanded outdoor alcohol service area for participating licensees have. If no maximum distance is specified, a default limit of 10-foot openings will apply. So that's the space. And then in one of these forms, it details the height of the barricades has to be on the application. There was a height requirement. So it can't just be traffic cones. It has to be something that designates it in a more formal way.
And does it have to be contiguous as well, like a ribbon?
It was a
something
10-foot opening, it's probably for like a street.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned some level of control in terms of egress and
Yeah, so the joint operating plan has the licensee by licensing number, outline the physical barriers surrounding the shared alcohol service area, including the type, height, and permanence. Describe all safety measures in place to mitigate risks to public safety in the sale and consumption of alcohol. What is the distance apart for openings into and out of the alcohol service area? So the way, like for an art and wine walk for a specific thing, you would probably designate the entire sidewalk for, on both sides of the street. If you could get some max amount of businesses participating, right? You wouldn't want to designate it all the way to Safeway. That would be a really long barricaded area and a long area to patrol. Yeah. And to collect litter from too. I mean, you also have to have a litter plan and. So my thought was to proceed with planning the Art and Wine Walk with a mind that potentially we could activate this for that purpose. See how it goes. If it goes well, maybe we apply for a different license. However, if we can't get the logistics planned, I think July, end of July is the absolute latest that we could have the Art and Wine Walk to meet the September 1 deadline of having the report in.
And then I think you indicated the fallback would be, if you still have the Art and Wine Walk, it would just be self-contained within each business. Yeah.
The question really is, because we tend to plan it extremely late, is the music crawl. I know there was interest in having something like this for a music crawl. That music crawl doesn't get planned at best until July sometimes, June.
I'd be planned ahead of time, but it doesn't happen until July.
It doesn't get planned.
Really?
until-
Okay.
Without saying more, it's very planned. So if there's interest in the music crawl, we will need to know soon.
Do you have what you need to sort of?
I do.
you know?
I also like the idea of using it for the Art and Wine Walk because there's already money designated. We do not have budget to support something like this for other events without budget amendment.
One more
One
comment.
comment.
Mike's concern is a really good concern. I mean, is this really who's it gonna benefit, right? Or is it gonna benefit our businesses? I mean, ideally, yes. But we don't know that. But we don't know that unless we try. So I like experiments. So my take is, let's move forward on this as an experiment. There's nothing that says we can't pull a rug on it. We really feel it's not benefiting, or if it somehow has additional safety concerns that we don't currently understand, something like that, we can just stop. But barring that, I'd say let's try it. Let's see what happens.
All right, sounds like you
Okay,
got some
all right, I have some
direction.
direction.
I agree. If it doesn't work, we just pull it.
Thank you.
So those were the three discussion items we had for this evening. I'm looking at the clock, we've got about 10 minutes or so. I did want to, rather than we can move into the good of the order, but I know Councilmember Olin provided some feedback on two of the items that were under written reports. I think, one of those was for Public Works, one was to the clerk around the public's record request. I actually had a couple comments or wanted to reinforce something, so I don't know if the council would be open to sort of discussing that during the good of the order, since it's not a consent agenda item, and or we would discuss it during the formal council, but just wanted to open that up as well. So I'll sort of start with the one was around the public records request, and so I appreciate, because I know that's been you've been thinking about it, obviously, in terms of, I just wanted to sort of weigh in on that as well. I think you raised the question about whether the applicability, how to apply it, whether it would be to everyone or to unique. I'm actually of the opinion as well, if we are to define that process, I think it's another tool to eliminate sort of frivolous requests, but I would also be in favor of having that be a blanket change for all. If it's a small records request, it would be a small deposit. If it's a larger records request, it'd be a larger deposit. I don't know if that's how you were thinking as well, but I wanted to see if the council wanted to provide any additional feedback to the clerk before you executed. Councilmember Kozlowski.
How would you define a small or large request until you actually do the research though?
Well, there's an estimate, right? Or
there is an estimate. It really depends on the amount of records. So if they are asking, for example, for 10 years worth of data, large request. If it's something related to, I want blueprints for my house, it's usually a small one. So it really is just looking at it and just kind of estimating or guesstimating, to be more, to be honest. It's just, it really depends on the request.
And I was, concerned about some exposure, again, sort of looks like the other content neutral policies we have, if they're applied uniformly across the board, it eliminates any potential, like you're targeting me or even based on past behavior, because the Open Records Request Act is pretty open in terms of what you can do. So I don't know if you wanted to add any more, Councilmember Owen or.
No, I mean, I tend to agree. I kind of like applying it everywhere. If we have tiers or something like that, I mean, I don't know what makes sense for how to apply the fees. The only thing I thought additionally, which I also don't want to overcomplicate it, but if there are people that routinely make requests, but they're in good standing because they always pay, then sure, you don't have to pay up front kind of thing, but like you establish good credit, but that's just more to track and measure and perhaps not necessary.
So would it be fair to add something at that reads to the tune of at the discretion of the public records officer?
I mean, in theory, I don't have a problem with that, but I feel like that might get you into trouble.
Pretty more technical, of course. No, that's a very good point. I can look into whether at the discretion of etc. would make sense from a legal standpoint, and if it doesn't, then it would be something that would be for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be in favor of a flat fee of $10 per request, regardless of the size,
Could you refund if it doesn't actually add up to that, they get a refund back? Yeah. No, that's fine. I was just thinking of the move and estimate. So-
Yeah. I mean, the nice thing, if you do a deposit, would be to estimate on the low side so that you knew it would be covered by the request, so that we wouldn't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so most of the time, what's interesting about public records requests is we can charge for so little. We track our time in producing the records, but absent photocopying expenses, we cannot actually collect costs. So the fee, in order to not be in a position of having to refund, it would be fairly nominal, like $2.50. And we have public records requests where we put in 60 to 70 hours of staff time producing it for a bill of 70 cents. So we would probably make a fairly nominal fee as a deposit, knowing that most of the time, I don't know we had one high one at $20 because we had to go photocopy plans, but
Yeah, that's the highest one I remember ever issuing, but that was because it required getting a ton of blueprints and actually having them scanned and all of that, so that required additional external services.
Well, I mean, if you just had a $10 flat fee, non-refundable for any request, that seems to me that would cover the expenses, with the exception of the outliers that you just described. And I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's.
we're not allowed to do that.
It's
We can only,
prohibited.
we can only charge, we can only collect what we expended in kind of external services. So if we buy you a flash drive, because you want a specific flash drive, if we had to go, if you find blueprints from 1910 and photocopy them so that we could then scan them to you because you only wanted them in scan. Yeah, so that's why it's really, really frustrating to get a public records request to ask for 5 years of emails from so-and-so to so-and-so. We spent 70 hours redacting them. The bill required us to photocopy one thing and it's only 10 cents. And those
You're
aren't
gonna charge for a redaction.
No.
Mhm.
So then that request was abandoned because the purpose of the request was not likely to receive the information. It was on a public website because all of our requests are publicly available to ask for the information, not to actually use the information once received.
But it's less around the cost and more around the charge, basically.
We can't do a deposit, can we? Or to make a request, you put down a deposit, you get that deposit back when you're done?
We can do that, but to Finance Director McMahon's point, we want to make it nominal enough that we're not issuing refunds.
Oh, okay. So
There's a certain administrative burden in issuing refunds.
So for most, so our, and I'll talk on the city side rather than the police side, because there's a difference in fee schedules there, but the nominal fee for us would be 10 items or less, $3.50. Would it be fair to put that as the threshold of a deposit? And then, you know, if they have more, obviously we would charge them more. Usually, if it's less, it's still $3.50. Would that be something that everybody would be in?
I would actually, so my understanding is part of this is to try and weed out say requests that don't get picked up.
Correct.
$3.50 isn't gonna make me still hit the button. I would
You have to
push for
provide
like 25.
You have to provide a payment instrument though, or you
Yeah.
have to pay.
But a
So
lot of people will pay a couple bucks to know that it causes a lot of work somewhere else. If you make it like $25, let's see if it tones down, and then we can always go through escalation based on documents. But if the intention is to try to understand our true reference request, I would set it at like 20 or 55. Something that makes you think, do how much do I really want this?
I didn't.
That'd be my point.
We can do that, but it will require a lot of refunding. I mean, the issue that we're attempting to solve here is fake requests. So whether, you know, you come with nickels to the front desk and pay your 60 cents, or you use a credit card instrument in the system to pay your 60 cents. They're not doing that because they are using, somebody help me.
So they would know who did the records request. Is the
Yeah.
ultimate.
This year particularly, 2025, had an uptick, a significant and noticeable uptick in alias requests
Okay,
that were then abandoned after the city spent hours trying to
okay.
respond.
So if the goal then is to have them either come into the office to pay or to get their credit card information from when they enter it, then $3.50 would default that. So makes sense.
Yeah, we're not trying to limit access to information. What we're trying to limit is, you know, requests that are not made in good faith.
Understood.
Provides the tracking, yeah. Councilmember Shippers.
So can, first of all, I don't like the idea of refunds. It's more work on our part. I just, you know, pay flat fee, you don't get anything back. And I agree, Lauren, that it should be 20, 25 bucks, whatever. Something that will help weed out frivolous, requests. So, but can we require them to, you know, to, leave their name, address if they come in person? And, or if they do it online, require them that the credit card holder has to be the person of record? Can we make those kind of requirements? No. Okay.
It's a very generic, if you look at the laws, there, you don't even have to live in the state, you know, so it's.
A little different with some police records, not all of it. Police records have a different construct around them, but go ahead.
There can be times that you're a victim of a crime or you're a victim of a collision that you get the report, no problem. Right? You don't even charge for those type of requests because you're part of that victim mindset. But police records, other than body worn camera footage, can be done anonymously. There's still redaction that has to take place. Body worn camera footage falls under a different category where a person has to identify themselves and give that information out to get that information. I could probably look at the ledger right now, and we could probably find there's probably 6, 7, 8, 9 requests that have been ready to be fulfilled but haven't been paid. So there's a lot of time spent by my records manager trying to work through that process that never becomes to fruition because she's collected all that data and gone through that process. But I think also when you start thinking about the Public Records Act, it was created with the aspect of not prohibiting people from getting those public records, but to allow for better access and transparency through those public records. So you have to kind of lightly define $25. Is that impacting those that want to have that transparency, want to get that information versus trying to prohibit that frivolous request? And we do get a lot of those. It was a political season and we went through a lot of that during the political times. And but the records for our police department are very complex at times. A lot of redaction has to replace. That includes both video as well as audio now, and as we go through that. So I think there has to be some type of process in place, and I think John has a very good idea of how that has to take place. But we do get a lot of requests that are very time consuming, very dedicated in the aspect of, and talk about body on cameras, you're talking about hours of video, not just from one officer, but from 3 or 4 different officers. And you have to look at watch the entire video to make sure there's no juveniles in there, make sure there are no license plates, make sure no computer, all those things take place, and it can be very time consuming.
And we can't charge more for those, or we can?
There's a higher rate fee for the redaction and going through that, but that's collected at the end, not necessarily at the front, right? Because you don't know how many hours you're gonna spend doing that or how much redaction time is gonna take place.
Yeah.
And so until you actually get into it, you may not know. And when somebody requests any and all, which are a number of those that we get, it takes time not only to recontact the individual and say, you requested any and all, but do you know how much that's gonna take? And is there a specific thing you're looking for? So we can kind of, narrow that expanse of what we're looking for. It does take a lot of time, but body worn camera is a big issue. And it also is very, very expensive.
Thank you.
So,
Went a little longer than we thought. I was really just to provide you guidance, and I think it was the clarity around the tracking versus, it's not as much a financial conversation, it's more of a tracking, be able to associate the requester with the request. So hopefully that provided you a little more guidance.
Thank you very much.
And I'll call the committee of a whole to close at 6:59. Do you want to build in a little bit of?
Yeah, we could come back at like 7:03 or something fun like that. 7:05 if you really need. special guest Troop 745 here tonight. They're gonna lead us in the flag salute.
Scouts, attention. Will you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Audit dismissed.
Feel free to come back and have a seat while you guys wait. All right, thank you for that. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Yes, certainly. Mayor McHenry,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mercer,
Here.
Councilmember Olin.
Here.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Here.
Councilmember Kozlowski.
Here.
Councilmember Supple.
Here.
Councilmember Wiggins. Councilmember Hernandez.
Here.
All right, thank you. We have a quorum. Next up, additions and corrections to the agenda. Are there any from council tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to adoption of the council agenda. If there's a motion to approve.
Seconded.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt the council agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. All right, next up, we have proclamations. We have quite a few tonight, so I will probably just go and read them all on the podium. I think that would be the easiest. I don't have to get up and down here. And John, are these in order? I didn't bring my agenda. Is it Ramadan, engineers?
Ramadan.
International. In that order? Okay.
Yes.
All right, so first up, we will have a proclamation for the start of Ramadan. So if anyone in the audience would like to stand with me while I read it, you're welcome now to come up. And if not, that's okay too, but please come up if you'd like to. As many that want to come up can, so you can just stand around me if you want. Whereas Ramadan is recognized worldwide by Muslims as a holy month to heighten worship and devotion, and whereas Ramadan provides us the opportunity to recognize the significance of our Muslim community in Duval and serves as a reminder that Islam has always been a part of the American experience, and Muslims have made extraordinary contributions to our community and country. And whereas throughout this holy month, many members of our community engage in daily fasting from dawn to sunset, increased acts of service, and gatherings with family and neighbors that strengthen bonds of understanding and fellowship. And whereas the values emphasized during Ramadan, kindness, humility, gratitude, and care for those in need are shared civic virtues that contribute to a stronger, more welcoming, and more connected community. And whereas the city of Duval recognizes and appreciates the cultural and spiritual diversity of its residents and honors the traditions that enrich the character of our city, promoting respect and inclusiveness among all community members. Whereas observing and acknowledging important cultural and religious occasions helps foster mutual respect, learning, and unity among all people. Now, therefore, I, Amy McHenry, Mayor of the City of Duval, hereby proclaim recognition of Ramadan and extend warm wishes to all who observe this holy month. We encourage residents to join in promoting understanding, compassion, and goodwill throughout our community. And we have a couple copies of the proclamation, if you'd like to take one. And there you go. Thank you so much. And did you, we could do a picture with council if you would like. Yeah. Council, do you want to come on up? You'll be getting up probably a couple more times. So get ready. Do you know where would you like us to stand?
Oh, perhaps.
Right here?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, please, please. Yeah, no, you're fine. We'll figure it out.
Ramadan Mubarak. Ramadan Mubarak.
All right.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And we know that at some point you'll have to sneak off, so that's okay. Feel free to leave anytime. All right.
To be honest with you.
Yeah. Actually, I'll just keep setting up. All right, next up we have National Engineers Week. Whereas engineers are essential to community well-being, applying creativity, scientific knowledge, and technical expertise to design, build, and maintain infrastructure that supports our daily lives. And whereas from transportation and infrastructure and water systems to communications, environmental protection, and emerging technologies, engineers contribute essential solutions that directly enhance resident safety, sustainability, and quality of life. And whereas the city of Duval recognizes and sincerely values the engineers whose work supports responsible growth, resilient infrastructure, and thoughtful planning that preserves the character and natural beauty of our community. And whereas National Engineers Week provides a meaningful opportunity to celebrate engineers' achievements, emphasize the importance of engineering education, and inspire young people to explore careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And whereas encouraging curiosity, innovation, and problem solving in future generations helps foster a strong, capable workforce ready to meet tomorrow's challenges with confidence. And whereas the city of Duval deeply values the dedication, integrity, hard work, and public service of the engineering division of our Department of Public Works, their dedication and vision, as well as their shared goal of a better, more improved Duval that works for everyone. Now, therefore, I, Amy McHenry, Mayor of the City of Duval, hereby proclaim February 22nd through February 28th as National Engineers Week. In the City of Duval, I encourage all residents to recognize and celebrate the engineers whose work improves our lives and strengthens our city each day. And just want to especially thank the one engineer I know for sure sitting here, which is Director Lenishevsky. All right. Next up, we have International Scout Day. So if anyone here is a scout or in the troop or anywhere else would like to come up and stand up here while I read this. I might know one or two of these people. It's not a bias, I swear. Okay. Whereas National Boy Scout Day is observed each year to recognize the founding of the Boy Scouts of America and to celebrate the positive impact scouting has had on generations of young people through leadership, development, service, outdoor education, and character building. And whereas the principles of scouting from the time of its inception by Lord Baden-Powell in 1907 include trustworthiness, loyalty, helpfulness, kindness, and reverence, foster responsible citizenship, and prepare young people to contribute meaningfully to their communities, principles which continue to be part of the Scouts to this day. And whereas scouting programs encourage youth to develop practical skills, resilience, teamwork, and a lifelong commitment to service above self. And whereas Scout Troop 745 actively serves the Duval community, demonstrating ongoing commitment to volunteerism, civic engagement, and environmental stewardship through numerous service projects and public contributions. And whereas the City of Duval is grateful for the dedication of the Scouts and the leadership of their adult volunteers and families, whose time, mentorship, and example help shape the next generation of community leaders. And whereas the service and spirit of Troop 745 embody Duval's core values, fostering community pride and unity among all residents. Now, therefore, I, Amy McHenry, Mayor of the City of Duval, join other communities in proclaiming February 22nd, 2026 as International Scout Day. Let us commend Boy Scout Troop 745 for their dedicated service, leadership, and positive impact on our city. All right, and since you all are up here, Council, would you like to come up and take a picture again? And then who would like to hold this? Would you like to hold up? There we go. All right, I don't want to block anyone, so please, you guys, yeah, push up there a little. Let's condense here with height. All right, perfect. Mike, you can come over here. Or you got a spot? Or you got us all, Jonathan? All right, everybody look up ahead, smile, or don't.
All right.
Thank you all so much.
Deborah, let's do this one.
Yeah, the truth decides where you what you do with that, but. All right.
Rita.
Okay.
We have flash.
All right. So last but certainly not least, we want to recognize Redemption Church, and I believe we have someone here who would like to come up. From Redemption Church. So whereas in December 2025, the City of Duval experienced significant flooding that resulted in impacts to members of the public and required coordinated emergency response actions. And whereas during the flooding event, the city identified an immediate need to establish an emergency shelter on very short notice to ensure the safety, warmth, and well-being of members of the public affected by rising river levels. And whereas Redemption Church responded swiftly by opening its doors and providing critical space as an emergency shelter, exemplifying community partnership and a proactive spirit during a time of community need. Whereas Redemption Church worked closely with city staff and Carnation Duval Citizen Corps Council to support shelter operations, demonstrating dedication and reliability during a stressful and uncertain period. Whereas the city of Duval recognizes that effective emergency response depends not only on government resources, but on strong, trusted community partners who are willing to act decisively and compassionately when circumstances demand it. And whereas the actions of Redemption Church during the December 2025 flooding exemplified the strength of community partnership, service to others, and a deep commitment to the well-being of Duval residents, reinforcing the importance of trusted community partners in emergency response. Now, therefore, I, Amy McHenry, Mayor of the City of Duval, along with the Duval City Council, recognize and express our heartfelt gratitude to Redemption Church for its outstanding support, cooperation, and service during the December 2025 flooding events, affirming the value of community partnership.
Do I get a hug too?
So if council would like to come up, so we have a copy of the proclamation and a nice little cup for you. And while we love what you did, I do hope that we don't have to hand out too many more of those plaques. We do really appreciate it.
For the good of the city.
Yeah.
So.
We hope you never do it.
Yeah,
That's right.
exactly.
And if needed, we are happy to open the doors all the time.
Yes,
So,
yes.
100 years.
Yeah.
That's right.
Recent years.
Oh, and there, got people.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks for
Happy
making
Ramadan, everybody.
it.
Thank you.
I'm sure you would love that. Okay, thank you for all of that. All right, so next up we have comments from the audience, and I just have a little blurb I have to read here. During the designated public commentary period at city council meetings, individuals are allotted 3 minutes to speak, while representatives of organizations may address the council for up to 5 minutes. Before presenting, kindly disclose your full name and city of residence. Each speaker and all remarks shall be addressed to the city council as a body and not to individual members of council or staff. The city strongly advises submitting written comments in response to verbal comments to expedite subsequent correspondence. Written comments must be received by the city clerk's office by noon on the meeting day, addressed to P.O. Box 1300, Duval, Washington 98019, or deposited at City Hall drop box located at 15535 Main Street Northeast, or by email. Please be aware that the city council, its boards, and its commissions accept public comments only from in-person attendees or at the meeting. The council does not accept handouts or printed materials during public commentary sessions. Information intended for the mayor or the city council shall be directed to the city clerk, who will disseminate it following the submitter's instructions. Upon receipt, the city clerk will receive written public comments and subsequently furnish them to the city council or the relevant board or commission. However, it's important to note that written comments will not be orally presented during the council or applicable board or commission meetings. Any written comments received after the noon deadline for written comments will be shared with the council at the next council meeting as a part of the city clerk's report. Did we have anyone sign up for public comment, or I can just ask as well?
Yes, please, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Oh, okay. Well, you got it? Okay. Did anyone sign up to give public comment tonight? You did? Oh, do you want to come on up?
I'm number 3 on the list.
Oh, you're number 3 on the list. Nobody else is coming forward, so.
Yeah, the other two are gone.
Okay. So feel free to state your name. Are you speaking on behalf of the trip?
I'm speaking on behalf of,
Okay, you would have up to 5 minutes then.
members of council, thank you for the proclamation today. It's wonderful to have the troop recognized. Troop 745 is a Duval troop. We're operating out of the Novelty Hill barn, on Monday nights, and we've got about 20 to 25 active members at any one time. These kids so far this year have done about 20 hours of community service each. And most of that is happening right here in Duval. It's an awesome opportunity for us to interact with council, and public works with these kids, because this is how they get to the aims of scouting, which are character development, physical fitness, being out there, citizenship, and opportunities for leadership. So we really appreciate all the projects that you send our way. We might not always like jump on them right away, but we've got a bunch of really interested scouts who actually need these for their leadership
opportunities that they gotta demonstrate as part of the scouting program for advancement. So I just want to say thank you for the opportunities to work with the city and the troop. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Was there, okay. Did anyone else from the audience want to speak? Not seeing any, okay. So next up, we'll move to our consent agenda. Does anyone on council want to make a motion to approve the consent agenda? Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Okay, motion passes. Consent agenda is approved. Next up, we have scheduled items, and the first is the mayor's report. I'll try to go quickly, but I apologize. I'm gonna be these get lengthy sometimes. Just to keep you all posted on what I've been doing, I attended the Sound Cities Association North Mayor's meeting. One item that came up was feedback on the CJTC grant program. Issaquah headed up the effort to create a letter to legislators expressing concerns over implementation as well as the timeline. Concerns about the timeline with the remaining time dwindling and very few have completed the process. So City Administrator McNabb and Chief had some feedback. I was able to send to those that were drafting the letter, and they've since finished the letter. I signed it, as did many cities, and sent it to legislators. So just asking for them to consider extending the timeline and addressing some of the concerns. I attended the FCA board and committee orientation with Mayor Pro Tem Mercer and Councilmember Olin. It was really great you were able to come last minute. I also served on a panel of veteran elected officials giving advice for newly electeds or those that are just new to the FCA committee process. I started a first regular meetup with Dr. Leach, the superintendent of the Riverview School District, and that has led to I'll be attending a future, she has a student advisory council, so I'll be able to sit in on that, and that's me also starting to ramp up for a youth round table and trying to explore ways to bring youth into our government and get their feedback. My family and I attended the Lantern Festival hosted by March of the Vegetables. That was last Saturday, I think. It's just such a magical event and it's incredible. And the weather behaved, it didn't rain, which is really good, but some of those lanterns were still, the glue was still dry. So it was really good. So just want to always thank all those that help make those events possible and put that together, because that's what's so good for our community. They want more events and it really creates special moments for everyone. So I've met with Kira Avery, the executive director of Snow Valley Senior Center. She gave me a tour of the center as well as the senior apartment, which I hadn't seen since the ribbon cutting, I think almost 2 years ago. And then, I did offer to explore future partnership if they want to at some point. They used to do satellite events in Duval. And so if they were needing space or ideas on what was needed in Duval, I just said that would be a great conversation to have in the future when they're ready to do that. City Administrator McNabb and I conducted final interviews with the candidates for Community and Economic Development Director. And then I was in Olympia for a couple of days. I attended a mayor as CEO training by AWC. So that was a training just for the strong mayors, which apparently is not the term we use anymore. It's executive mayors, because weak mayors don't like me calling me weak. So executive mayors. It was really helpful. I really enjoyed all the training I did. So the next day was the Mayor's Exchange, which includes all kinds of mayors, weekend strong. And we had a lot of great sessions, and also Senator Dingera, Representative Lowe, and Penner had stopped by just to give us advice on how to engage. And one thing that came out of that was that March through November is one of the best times to connect with your representatives, because they're not busy and you're not having to pull them off the floor if they're about ready to vote on something. So I think it's good to remember and not always focus on those city action days, but to reach out anytime as well. And then lastly, Councilmember Schieffer and I attended round 2 of a subcommittee for Duval Days. I think that was, they're getting close to getting a survey out, and it's basically this subcommittee is trying to get feedback from businesses and how Duval Days affects their business, and are there ways to mitigate that and make it more successful for everyone. So with that, that's it. So next we'll go to the city administrator's report with City Administrator McNabb.
Good evening. Thank you, council, mayor, staff, members of our community. Cynthia McNabb, City Administrator. So we will start with community development. So a couple updates from the Community and Economic Development Department. So as the mayor referenced, our interviews were completed this last week on Friday for the new director position. And we had a really strong candidate pool. We have selected a finalist and they will hear this week with a job offer to them. The director positions are covered by contract, employment by council. So on the March 3rd meeting, we'll have a copy of the employment contract for the director position, as well. We'll go into executive session to discuss our qualifications before you all go on that employment contract. But exciting. It's been some amount of work to get to this point, but we're very excited about the finalists for that position. We will be starting first round interviews for the principal planner and building official this week. We have, again, some fairly strong candidates for both of those positions. Not fairly strong candidates for both those positions. So we're excited about the applicants that we're getting and the opportunity to talk to them about coming to Duval. On Thursday, I meet with Burke Consulting to launch the design standards work. So that's the work that identifies the architectural design of our buildings, kind of sets the design standards that we want for new development and future development here in the city of Duval. It's exciting work. It's detailed work. It involves not only getting the planning side complete, but also hiring an architect to draw renderings for us. So that work will commence this week. On Friday, I meet with Fish and Wildlife, as well as our consultant doing the critical areas ordinance to discuss the Fish and Wildlife comments that we got back on the critical areas ordinance. And so once we have those comments, we're able to talk to Fish and Wildlife. The new draft of the critical areas ordinance code section will come to council again. And then finally, we, by the end of the month, we'll get a new draft sign code. It's been since 2015 that we needed to update our sign code. Long time coming. We have, I think, the makings of a really good draft. There are some key decision points that council will have to make for the city on constitutional issues regarding the sign code. We expect to have it to council on the beginning conversation on either March 17th or the first meeting in April. And that's what I have for the Community Development Department. Next, I will turn it, unless there are any questions. All right, next we will turn it over to Director Leshevsky.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, citizens, and scouts. Steve Leshevsky, Public Works. And National Engineers Week, Jeff, Scoutmaster back there is another engineer. So have a good week next week, Jeff. On your screen, before I jump into that, I didn't get a slide because I did get ahead and make these last week, but today was kind of a mess. But we did host our all public works staff meeting today from 10 to about 11:30. We had 58 slides. The intent is quarterly meetups to discuss any number of things, but the staff themselves, like council, they do like to understand and hear what is going on. So yeah, we had a great meeting. Some of our engineers led some of the slides. I led most. The operations team led a couple slides too with some stuff they're up to. Treatment plant as well. So everybody was here except for 2 staff members who are out on either maternity leaves. Our capital programs manager and his wife had their 2 babies. They had twins over the last weekend. So everybody's doing well. And then Marissa was out too. So I thought that was a great success. I don't think I've ever had them all in one spot like that. So good meeting, and thank you, Mayor, for popping in and visiting with us all morning. On that note, one thing I want to just bring forward. So the image on the right is the parcel we're still interested in potentially purchasing and working with the landowner on. That has the quality title. They're making great progress. I mentioned this because we did come to council, was in consent to do the land acquisition grant through our King County Conservation Futures team again. So the 2 numbers that I want to make sure brought to your attention. So we planned for $620,000, which was the land King County assessment. So the grant on their side would have been that much. The total was $827 for the appraised value. Sorry, and the city's match would have been $206. The grant manager called and she suggested a couple things. One would be to up the value for what she thought was a little more market appropriate. So what I did is I reviewed our other land purchases recently per square foot and reapplied some map to the area, as well as added a 3% bump for market share that she thought was reasonable for things that they are seeing on the county side. Now that's for regular land. This one's more than 65 to 75%, non-usable per se. But what that did is that adjusted the city's match share. But she also reduced the grant total by $175,580, which was part of our previous grant from the other 3 parcels we purchased that we did not end up using based on how the purchase and sales all washed out. So bottom line is they would come up with a little more money. We would come up with a little more, but less percentage than them for 242. So if it does come to fruition, we're in for a little bit more. We would come back for a council to sign that anyway, but I just want you guys to know that since we did just have that in a council action item recently. So next slide.
Yes, sir. See, before you go on, well, can you help me understand where that's at related to Big Rock?
It's really hard to see. There are red faint lines, and since I can't control the pointer,
It's on the other far side.
yeah.
Far side, or left?
So the ball field right is on the left of the screen. So this piece here
Okay, we
touches
talked
Baton
about that
Road.
before.
Yes,
Okay,
it's
that's
not,
on
there's
that.
nothing new.
Yeah.
But this is that line, which is right here.
Sure.
So that would touch Baton Road. So we would have
It was the connectivity
Yeah.
to,
from Baton to Big Rock.
yeah.
Which is the little bit of road you can see in that
Yeah,
top right
gotcha,
corner.
got it. Okay, good, thank you.
Next slide is just letting you folks know it's been since 2017 when the lights in the fields renovations went on. And first 2 great news, we have a warranty program for Musco Lighting and they'll be out to fix that. Just notice it one night when we're out there. Next slide. I do meet monthly with the operating board for Seattle Public Utility as well as a different day of the month for the operations side of Seattle. So all the groups meet to talk about testing, what's going on in systems, all that. So fun fact, we are keeping an eye on our residuals. They do drop, so chlorine, it dissolves and basically becomes less effective over time. So the residual diminishes. So we have to watch that. But that's just an interesting part of the work for the year. But the more interesting thing on the graph here, the solid line is the population that Seattle Public Utilities serves in the region. So not just Seattle, but all of us wholesale purchasers. So as our population is approaching 1.7 million, the rate of consumption per person is dropping significantly. So the bar graph is the annual consumption of water. The dark bar is lost water, so leaks, testing, things that you can't really account for, that you don't get paid for. And you can see that has significantly dropped from left to right, which is 70s to now. The white part is wholesale, so that is us as wholesale purchasers. And then the bottom bar is gray, which is Seattle Public Utilities, actual Seattle customers. But the bottom line is we're consuming about 124 million gallons a day as a region. And we consumed, for example, in 1979, about 1.4 million gallons a day. So the number is, it's right around 1 million now. So the number is way down, even though the population is way up, right? More efficient appliances, less waste, people understanding that water is a resource, and a lot of public education outreach. So, that said, we're doing our annual reporting, so we work obviously hand in hand with the ops team. So Sarah and them and myself are trying to quantify all the loss because we have to turn that in. One, we want to know why we didn't sell, we buy water, why didn't we sell all the water we bought? Systems do leak. Fire does their testing and they don't measure that, but they are doing a great, they have a dashboard now where they quantify that and they turn it in. So they send us all their numbers, and then other things from trainings, we flush our system too. So we try to quantify that. A lot more attention to where the water is going when it leaves the system, if it's not through a tap or another meter device. So trying to meter everything we can and understand where it all goes. So it's just part of what we do annually for the entire water system. Next slide. just some emergency management touch base. You've noticed the new locks here. We're getting used to using that. It's great for renting. It's great for us. It does have a camera now, so we can associate some activities for rent and whatnot here at the door. But we did, and I don't know if Chief has this in his report, but the police department did use one of the portable AEDs in their vehicles. I know I only noticed that because Luke was buying a new case because it got, what do you say, bodily fluid all over it. But it sounds like it was a successful use of some AEDs. So I just want to make sure we report that to you folks, since they are a cost that we do choose to incur, but for the benefit of obviously public safety and health. Next slide. Just some notes. We have one kind of set of question comments, suggestions for the stormwater management plan that was in the packet as just a written report. So thank you for those, and a lot of outreach throughout the year. So all of our events, we try to host a booth. We take tons of pride in that, and we are doing regional booths as well at some of the festivals, Future Sound, part of other membership groups. We just have partnerships. So a lot of stormwater stuff going on, but our annual report is coming due to the state. So that was in your packet. And that's it for Public Works. Any questions?
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yeah, quick question. Can I still get stormwater plan comments to you?
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. It's in there as a pretty much kind of thing. Oh, and I didn't have a slide, but the crew brought it today. What you call it? Locate Mageddon. February had over 150 locates submitted that we got to go locate. So
Wow.
Lots going on.
Thank you.
Great, next, city clerk's office.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, members of the public, John Botero, City Clerk. So we again received the recognition of being Well City. That is something that through a series of events, we are able to retain a 2% discount on our premiums for next year. So this year we are going to be planning a lot of events, staff-related events. For example, last year there was one about talking about, I believe it was strokes and heart health, and book challenge, walk challenge, bike challenge, etc. There's quite a few. So all of those put together, we send an application to the Association of Washington Cities, and if it meets the criteria, then we receive the designation of a Well City and receive a discount. And I would be remiss not to give a shout out to Deputy City Clerk Kelsey McDonald, who for putting the whole thing together and helping us keep the designation. Also, we're looking into scheduling for Saturday, March 28th for the council retreat. Information on the exact time and location will be coming out shortly. And thank you all to all who registered for Jurassic Parliament on March 14th. We have a total of 25 people, so it's gonna be fun, I promise. And also, you might have seen your new badges. They open City Hall, all 3 doors, Monday through Friday, from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. They've all been tested. If you have any issues, just let us know. You might have also received an email from something called Verkada. That is so that you can set it up on your council phone. So if you forget your badge, but you have your council phone, you just, as long as Bluetooth is on, you put it near the reader, it'll open the door. Mm-hmm. And please feel free, if you have any questions about setting it up, or if you have issues with it, just please let Luke or I know, and we'll be more than happy to help out. That's about it for me.
Any questions for John?
Full disclosure, it logs your entrance and exits. So.
Okay, couple announcements. So the Parks Advisory Commission will be starting soon. Announcements for that will be out later this week. I just need to prepare the communication. So we'll start soliciting applications for the inaugural since 2001 Parks Advisory Commission with the launch of that. We'll have a planned, work, an initial work plan for them, but more to come as they begin their work. Today, Rita, our community events and communication manager, met with KCLS this afternoon to discuss storybook walks. This summer, we're getting 3, one at a time throughout the summer. So the first will actually be, I believe it's Taylor Park. Is that where Clifford is? Yes. So first will be at Taylor Park, midsummer at McCormick Park, and then the third storybook we will figure out what park. But if anybody has been to a park that has a KCLS story walk, it's they're yard signs and they're 14 and they pair with a book, but you read the book as you walk along the park. One is nature. The first book set is nature. One is indigenous culture, and the third one, I believe, is a story in both English and Spanish that will be throughout the city this year. So we're excited for that. And then we're also working on opportunities for read with a mayor, council member, police officer, police chief. So special guest story time, if you so choose. So they have a new children's librarian over there who we met for the first time today, who is absolutely delighted to work in Duval. She lives in Monroe. This is her dream job, is to get the children's librarian job for Duval's library. And she's just really excited. She pairs with our wilderness school and she wants to do story time outside, bird watching. So we're really excited about the partnership with KCLS and making sure that we're cross-promoting each other's events. We're beginning to put together a civics opportunity for the public to learn more about the city and how it operates. There's a ton of models out there. So the city of Sumner does Sumner University, where over 2 nights, they invite 50 people in to learn about how the city operates, its budget, its departments. So like I said, there's a ton of models. Spokane has this really cute comic version of it that's really accessible to the public, that's kind of in these comic renderings, but it's every department in the city and a map. So we're going to start working on that. We're hoping to launch that in late summer, early fall. It was one of the mayor's commitments in her campaign to engage the community more in local government. So we're going to start working on that. We've completed our summer lineup for Summer Stage. We'll start the 2026 sponsorship opportunities in March and April. And then it is time to go out for attorney requests for proposals. So you will have a written report in the 317 council meeting, which will be a draft request for proposals for city attorney services. We've had the same contract for about 4 years, and we were at the end of our 1 more year extension, but that extension called for us going out for requests for proposals this year. And with that, any questions on any of these? Okay. Just wanted to alert everyone that for the second year, we're doing our Holy event. It'll be March 14th from 1 to 4. And it's getting lots of love on social media. We're really excited to do this again. So if you can drop by after spending a morning in Jurassic Parliament, come celebrate down at Depot Park for Holy. We have performers, and last year we did chai tea and samosas, and we did colors, and there was a DJ. It's a fun way to spend the afternoon. And let's hope, like last year, we get great weather this year. I don't know, Steve, what's the weather prediction?
I don't know, it's Pi Day too.
It's also Pi Day.
The win-win.
And then finally, our cultural commission is in the process of scoring the 2 final mural opportunities in this biennial art plan. So one is to paint the snack shack out at Big Rock. The theme was night sky, because that's where we do night sky, with the hope that eventually we become a night sky city. And then the one on the right are the stairs here at the visitor center, beautifying that area down here below. Even though some of them show painting all of the stairs, we, for safety reasons, cannot paint the top of the stair. It's just the rise. But we got really beautiful submissions this year for the 2 mural opportunities. So we're looking forward to getting those finalized, scored. And what we learned from our murals last year is painters and artists love dry weather. So probably July. And with that, any other questions beyond even what I presented?
Councilmember Olin?
I actually did have a question with the RFP for the city attorney. Does that preclude Oscar from reapplying?
No.
Okay.
No.
Just curious.
I'm anticipate Ogden Murphy Wallace will submit a proposal.
Other questions? All right.
Yeah, just to speak on behalf of weather and forecasting for the summer, it would be kind of cool to have some snow on the ground for Holy. That'd be pretty cool looking, actually.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know that it's, I'm sure it's happening somewhere.
Let's have to get some snow packing. Or...
Yeah, the snow and the colors.
We need some snowpack and we need some snow to make it through the spring and the summer a little bit for drinking water and.
I'm gonna bring my dog.
Right. There you go.
Thank you very much.
So that's that should be a forecast, I'm sorry. But, yeah.
Next up, we have council reports. Do any council members have a report tonight? Mayor Pro Tem Mercer.
So I actually have sort of 2 items. I have something I missed earlier. There was an agenda correction, and it's the agenda bill. The next one we're going to talk about under new business is 2520. It should be 2620. But should have caught it earlier, but
Something that Ken was just like. Yeah, so we can, okay.
I actually, I think you mentioned, we had sort of the orientation meeting. The first Public Issues Committee for Sound City Association was this last week. They often have free opportunities the hour in advance to hear other speakers. And this month it was the Northwest Immigrant Project. So very interesting. They provide legal defense for, obviously there was a lot of topical discussion around ICE and some of the projects they're working on. There was a number of questions, but we actually ran out of time. I think it was 45 minutes. It could have gone probably into a 2-hour, discussion, but some great information. Obviously Duval, it's not, been impacted as much as some of our bigger cities, but in terms of how they're preparing and the services that are available was really interesting to hear. The first PIC meeting itself was a lot of introductions. I think this election cycle, there was just a lot of turnover amongst mayors and councils in general. So there was a new chair, but there was a lot of new faces on the PIC committee. So, and I, also want to thank the city administrator. There was an opportunity to share some of our city priorities, which I did share in terms of, as well as some of our interest in equity, fairness, sort of across the big city, small city views. And then I had applied following the orientation meeting to the nomination committee. I learned that I had actually been selected, so I will be representing Snoqualmie Valley, the Snoqualmie Valley city for future appointments to committees. And then also that same week had the first of the well, it depends on the city you're in, but a deputy council president or mayor pro tem, sort of the equivalent, kind of a what's topical, around the horn type discussion, which Robert coordinates. And it's, again, a lot of new faces, but it was an opportunity just to share some top of mind and sort of figure out where we might build a partner going forward. So that's it.
Congrats on your appointment. That's awesome. Any other council member reports tonight? All right. Oh, Councilmember Schaefer.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna add to the Duval Days Economic Development Subcommittee report that in addition to the survey, we're gonna do what Morgan Henley has called a walkabout. But it'll be Morgan, myself, possibly others. And we're going to just walk around Main Street, possibly, hopefully, also by the Segway area, and talk to business owners. We're gonna try to choose a time when we think most of them will be there. We're also gonna put something out ahead of time to let them know, hey, this is happening, so, we're gonna be around, between these hours on this day. And just remind them that the survey's out there, they haven't already responded, ask them to respond. This obviously includes chamber members and also non-chamber members. And just get our faces out there a bit too, so we have some, closer association with some of the business owners that we currently don't have.
Thank you. Any others? Okay, great, thank you. We'll move on to new business. First up, Agenda Bill 26-20, reorganization of the Department of Public Works with Director Lenishevsky.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council, staff, citizens, and scouts that are still here. Steve Lenishevsky, Public Works. So in the packet is a request for authorization to reclassify some staff. And for those who may or may not know, Council approves budget as well as FTE count. So FTE count in the Public Works isn't requested to change in total number at this time, but the reallocation of position titles with those duties based on a incoming retirement. So next slide. So right now on the left, you have a list of staff members who are kind of affected by this change. We have a public superintendent, public supervisor, city engineer, assistant city engineer, and public works administration specialist. The proposal is to kind of slide the public supervisor out of current active role, add a utility inspector, and then keep the superintendent, increase the city administrator McNabb's work. At the last meeting, we comped the city engineer, and the city engineer role was comped against city engineers / deputy public directors. So that's kind of an easy one on the math side because that was already enacted. But again, in enacting the title change with the role expansion by definition and by job description. So deputy public director, city engineer, and then the associate city engineer and the engineering technician. All of those three, besides the deputy, utility inspector, superintendent, associate, and engineering tech, those all exist in our package of FTEs as authorized either by the city and or union contract. So none of those are new. They all exist and are supported by our regular operations. So what this does is we're kind of shuffling some of the roles and duties to people who do exist here that not only help do the work, but can do the work and then will do the work when the superintendent retires. He's been here 38 years. So there's a lot of work that he goes that kind of goes unseen and unsaid. So making sure that all those duties are covered in how we work through CoWorks, if that gets covered. Every one of these is a step in increase in workload and or expectation and not only proficiency, but I guess degree of difficulty. So that's kind of the titling, this helps us for succession planning, growth of staff, mentoring of staff, covering the needs, not only of the department, but the city, right? Where the utility inspector is an important role. I've been here long enough where we've had mayors come in and ask why we have a utility inspector, and we didn't really have it. We had had it in title in years past, but based on budget and other things, we kind of squished it all into the superintendent's role here and there. But if you don't inspect things, you get neighborhoods that fall apart faster. You get substandard utilities. The water leak that we had 2 weekends ago was in a subdivision. Our plans showed that should have been a 4.5 foot deep pipe. Right? No inspection services provided by the city in the mid 80s when it was built. The pipe was almost 10 feet down. And how that happens is, right, you plow a piece of land, you put the utilities in, and then when they're all done, it's inspected, then they go move the dirt around to make it blend into the neighborhood next door. And nobody is the wiser. It doesn't really care why, that a water pipe is now 10 feet down. But when we have to go dig it up in year 32, we sure as heck want to know why it's 10 feet down and how come it took us so long to get that leak fixed because 10 feet down. So things like that, or utility inspection is just critically important. And that is the focus we need to make sure we keep in one person's, toolbox, and the other roles and work that the person did can be spread amongst other staff who are plenty capable. So, and then I guess the good news is this year, I won't say that it won't cost us over time, because all these roles in one way, shape, or form will grow. Now, some of them will be topped out already, so it's not like it's going to be a big thing down the road between superintendent and technician roles. I know those people will be pretty well topped out, and the other ones will jump into about the middle of the scale. So there will be growth in future years, but this year in the budget is over $20,000 savings. So next slide. This is a little hard to see. Span and control is getting reshuffled here. We've kind of right-sided the operations side. So Joe Creasy, you all know Joe. We have leads under every department. So streets and storm has a lead, water has a lead, and parks has a lead. And then they all are growing into their roles and managing subordinates and have 1s, 2s, and 3s. We also have a facilities technician. She works directly for Joe. She's not under one of the other teams. And then sewers, there's no realigning of sewer here. And then under my team, the city engineer, she currently has 2 staff, capital program manager has 2, and then I kind of pick up the rest of management. So next slide, kind of putting people into a little bit different buckets because of this, which is great. Span and control, 4 to 7 people is your target. Before this reorg, Joe had 11. I had 7 or 8, which is just a lot. So we're getting to a really nice place to help manage our staff, grow our staff, and then give them a resource to learn and lead as well. So the biggest change is just under Deputy Public Director. She'll assume the new tech transfer as well as the new utility inspector, since they're doing most of the work for the engineering side of the house. Our new assistant engineer would then be associate. She is a professional engineer licensed by the state of Washington with plenty of experience, well past the duties of her current role. So we're excited there. I'm not sure why I put a box around emergency management coordinator. He doesn't move at all, but it looks good. So keep it in the next slide. So there's your just financial changes to the department, soaking in anything that would be earned through wage as well as longevity. Union positions have a different longevity table than non-union. I think everybody would be a union position besides the deputy city engineer. And then the job descriptions per person and job were in the packet. They were not redlined. Cynthia and I made a couple changes to some mostly either terminologies and or clarifications. We didn't expand or decrease any roles per se by definition and have a job descriptions laid out, but clean them up a little to make them look a little more like the rest of ours, because some were laying around for a long time and some terminologies were old, like so what was the one, Cynthia, the city hall administrator / planning director, was part of the people we were reporting to. Yeah. So back when we had a very interesting administrative management structure. So all in all, obviously administration supports the role and the changes and the need for the department. So bringing it forward is just what I'm here to do. So if there are any questions, I am here to entertain those at this time.
Before we open for discussion, is there a motion?
I need more to raise my hand. I move to approve Agenda Bill 2620 and authorizing the city to amend the FTEs as presented effective March 1st, 2026.
Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Councilmember Schaefer, go ahead.
I strongly believe that the city leadership is always in a much better position than council to determine how to best use their staff, including these types of changes. And that effectively, with the additional information that there's very little budget impact, in fact, slightly positive budget impact, I see no issue with this.
Mayor Pro Tem Mercer.
Yeah, I just sort of add to that a little bit. It's also nice to see some recognition. I know Larissa's been doing a amount of work to see her sort of, recognized in terms of that role and the broader responsibilities. I think we've talked regularly about the importance of both the retention plan, but also continuity of business and a growth trajectory. So I think this also, the plan reflects that, but I agree with you. It's like, at the end of the day, the directors, I think, are in the best position, but it's nice to see this sort of kind of fruition for them.
Councilmember Supple?
Yeah, on your salary table, what's with longevity? What do you mean by that?
Sure. In the union contract, there are specific
Oh, scales, that's it.
scale. So obviously there's a scale, which is 7 steps. But then once you've served 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 25, there's an additional percentage that is on top of wage. So it's, basically you get wage compression after, if you're gonna, serve a career here, your table's gonna top out. So it is a way to recognize to avoid some of the wage compression that does occur for tenured staff. And I think, hopefully the mayor saw today, like, we have a great staff. Everybody gets along, they work well together, they're well informed, and they know how, make sure they know how each other works. So, it's always easy to sit back and go, oh, I didn't do anything today, or what are those going to do? Like, we don't have a lot of that because, everybody's busy. But unless you show everybody, like we bring to you folks, what they do, you don't, you can become complacent and really see things that are going on. The sewer guys work in buildings and replace blower motors and things all the time that nobody's aware of because they're inside buildings in the basement. So it's nice to share those things and give them opportunity to share what they've done as well. So.
Other questions or discussion? Okay, so there's a motion on the table. It's been moved and seconded that the city council approve agenda bill 26-20, authorizing the city to amend the FTEs as presented effective March 1st, 2026. If there's no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes. Thank you. And just quickly would say, I'm just so proud to be a part of a city with such a strong leadership team. And it is like, as I was able to be a part of that department meeting today, and to see all of it happen live time. They just are all so great and get along so well. And, big thanks to the leadership of that department for leading such a strong team. So, all right, next up, we have Agenda Bill 26-21, proposed amendments to DMC 2.15 Planning Commission with City Administrator McNabb.
Thank you. Good evening. So the next two agenda items are my effort to take off some of the low-hanging fruit in the Community Development Department as they wait for their next director. As I've been down there since October, we have a whiteboard filled with work and filled with code revisions. Every time something comes up that's like, oh, that's outdated code, or oh, this should change, we put it on the whiteboard. I selected 4 that I thought I could make a difference and get those done before the new director came. So the first one here is chapter 2.15 regarding the Planning Commission. As you see from the red lines in the packet, this code section has not been revised since 2002. So I took a first cut at it. It was reviewed by Oscar. He made some additional corrections. For the most part, there's not a lot of substantive difference so much as kind of clean up, revise, standardize, and update. And just an opportunity to bring it kind of into current practice, current language. So that is the summation of the revisions to 2.1503. I realize it's a first touch. Council can decide tonight if you would like to approve it. It's not terribly controversial, but it's completely up to you.
All right. Before we get started on discussion, does anyone want to make a motion? Councilman Supple?
Go right ahead.
I move to approve Agenda Bill 26.1, changes to the Duval Municipal Code, section 2.15 under ordinance 1348.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion or questions? Okay, silence I'm taking as you'd like to move forward then. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that what is it here? To approve Agenda Bill 26-21, changes to the Duval Municipal Code 2.15 under ordinance 1348. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. motion passes. Thank you, that was very quick. And then last on our agenda is Agenda Bill 26-22, proposed amendments to DMC 2.30, hearing examiner with Cynthia McNabb, city administrator.
Good evening again, same process, so, the need to update this section was equally present. It has not been updated since 2005. So I took a first effort at updating it, and again, it was reviewed by our city attorney. There is one additional factor in bringing that I would like to bring to your attention. I attended a land use law update in December. And in that update, a land use attorney recommended that cities throughout the state update certain sections of their code relating to hearing examiners to better define who a party of interest is in with regard to hearing examiners or hearing examiner cases. And so those updates have been made throughout. There were 2 sections actually that are highlighted here. But for the most part, cleanup by Oscar, our city attorney, and substantive changes to party of interest by me. They're fairly straightforward. I did include for your edification. Some of you might have found it an interesting read. Others maybe less so, but the slide deck that was associated with the requested changes through, I believe it was an MRSC training on land use law. And with that, again, I know it's a first touch, and I'm happy to answer any questions. You can feel free to adopt it tonight, or we can have additional council discussion at next meetings.
Did anyone want to start with a motion?
I move to approve Agenda Bill 2622, changes to all municipal code, section 2.30 under ordinance 1349.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Does council have discussion? Councilmember Olin?
Scrivener's here. I at the very end, page 75 of the packet, there are 2 in section 2.30.240. It has section A and then 2 section B's and then C.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments? Just,
I did have,
I'm sorry to jump in. I was just going to say that we can treat that as a Scrivener's error and make the correction and continue to move forward with the consideration of it. I don't think we need to bring it back, but I appreciate it being called to our attention.
thank you. Councilmember Hernandez?
I just had a question about party of record on here. There's a lot of mentions of who has been made a party of record. How do you become that party of record for this? And is that something that needs to be announced to people beforehand, or it's just a matter of clarification for me?
Yeah, there are 2 ways to become a party of record, and Oscar, I'll have you wait on screen because you probably know more than I do. So I'll tell you of the 2 ways I know. One of which is when we issue SEPA, if you provide comments for through the SEPA process, you become a party of record. The second way is as we provide public notice of the hearing examiner procedure. If you provide comments during the hearing examiner process, you too become a party of record by responding to that notice. And there are other ways, I'm sure, Oscar, if you would like to add.
Yeah, I mean, the key thing is for these types of processes, which we call quasi-judicial because they're a little bit like what a judge does, except we use a hearing examiner for it. And it's really a question about making sure that the scope of the ability to either appeal or move for reconsideration is limited to the individuals who have taken an active role in expressing their concerns about the project. And so if somebody files the appeal, then they're a party of record and they should be allowed to move forward. The problem with the code, the way it is currently written, is that it doesn't really place meaningful restrictions on who can appeal. And while that might not sound like a bad thing, the concept of legal standing really means that only people who have actively participated in the process should be able to continue that process in the form of either reconsideration or appeal.
Other questions or discussion? Council ready to vote on this tonight? Yes. Okay. So it's been moved and seconded to approve Agenda Bill 26-22, changes to the Duval Municipal Code 2.30 under Ordinance 1349. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes. And with that, see, they don't all go long. I think our newer council members were worried. So with that, we will adjourn at 8:14. Thanks, everyone.